So in continuation for the reparations I have to pay for my Charles Olivera versus Beneil Dariush video, I watched the entirety of Olivera versus Makhachev at 0.25 speed, and here's every little thing that I noticed. Charles opens up with a flying front kick, and as you see, Islam Makhachev just evades the kick by backing up. Now what you'll find from this video is this is what Islam does every time Charles pressures, and this is what separated him from all Charles' other opponents when it came to the striking. Very similar to the Beneil Dariush fight, Charles also opens up with a high kick here, and you can tell Charles has improved his kicking combinations a lot. Here he threw the kick naked, Islam saw it coming, easily backed up, taking a lot of the brunt away from the kick. Against Beneil Dariush, Charles hid the kick with a right hand. Because of that, Beneil looked to slip, he was still in range, and he ate a lot of power from the kick. This sequence right here shows why Islam beat Charles. Against Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, it was all the same. They were the better striker than Charles Olivera. At least, that's what they thought coming into the fight. They needed to be striking and avoid the takedowns. So, whenever Charles would pressure, they'd let him come on the inside because they knew this is where they wanted to be, in punching range. Now, what Islam learned from those fights was that Charles is very, very dangerous when he's pressuring you. He smothers you, he overwhelms you, and he overwhelmed those three guys and ended up landing a lot of shots. So what Islam did, he was backing up, letting Olivera march forward. As soon as he took a step back, Olivera took a step forward, lunging straight right hand that landed very clean, followed by a hook. Then he's out of range again. He never let himself stay in the pocket with Olivera because that's where he's the most dangerous. Islam comes in with some very unorthodox strikes. They're not super clean, but him and Khabib as well had very unorthodox striking that seemed to just work for them very well, and it worked here. Charles had just got dazed by a very clean right hand coming in, so Islam decides to flurry. What's important here is you see Islam is only striking with Charles on his terms. I'm going to be a broken record with some of this, but once again, he is not trading in the pocket. What you guys are going to find is Islam spams this exact setup over and over again. He takes a step back, waits for Charles to move forward, pull counter, right hand, hook. This time, though, Charles, knowing what happened last time, did not fully commit and stayed more on the outside. And you could see how much Islam respects Charles' striking by the way he already had that lead hook chambered ready to go. Right here, you see again, Charles pressures at all, throws a few feints, and Islam is backing up ready to defend. He respects Charles' striking so much, which was the problem Dustin Poirier, Gaethje, Chandler had. They traded with him in the pocket, and Islam is playing this fight so carefully. So an interesting strategy that Islam is utilizing here is the old Gracie Jiu-Jitsu self-defense motto. They call it the green, red, green zone.
You want to at least be 2 arm lengths away, because from 2 arm lengths away, they cannot abruptly punch you and knock you out or kick you without some kind of forecast or warning of their behavior. So from this distance, I'm safe. We call this the green zone. Now, this right here is the red zone. I'm within 1 arm length distance. If he strikes right now, I could get knocked out if he has the power behind it. And here's what's crazy. This is also a green zone, all the way in.
And this is what Islam utilizes very well. He is constantly moving away, always in the outer green zone. He occasionally lunges into the red zone for a shot, and then he's back out again. But when Charles really closes the distance with him, Islam goes all the way in and hugs, tries tying Charles up. And when he does that here, Charles meets him in the clinch and then pulls guard. Now here on the ground is where Charles Olivera, in my opinion, shows how much better of a submission grappler he is than Islam. Charles here, he traps Islam's right arm and works to try to cut an angle to throw up an armbar. Islam recognizes this though and he slips his elbow out. Charles, though, chains this by keeping his leg over Islam's shoulder. This prevents a lot of ground and pound. Islam right there is trying to get his shoulder out, but he's unable to do so. As soon as he postures up, Olivera sees the opportunity to go for wrist control and feet on hips. And this is where Islam makes a very big mistake. When someone is controlling your wrists like that from guard, you do not want to lay back down on top of them. But this is exactly what Islam does, and Charles uses this to keep his arms back and then throw up the triangle. Islam does recognize it immediately though and tries pulling out and almost does. You see his head pull out, but Charles is able to lift his hips up and catch him in it again. To defend, Islam postures up and takes his hand that's trapped inside of the triangle and puts it against his chest, only leaving his elbow out and exposed. This is going to make it difficult for Olivera to finish the triangle. Olivera briefly tries grabbing his shin, but with Islam's hand out, it is too late to finish the triangle. This puts Charles in a perfect position to grab a Barato Plata, which he does consider doing, but Islam's other shoulder starts to squeak out and he bails on it and re-grabs full guard. FYI, this is a Barato Plata. Since pulling guard, Olivera is winning in this position. Islam is defending well, but that is all he's doing is defending. After that, Makhachev lays in guard, puts his head directly under Olivera's chin, kind of causing a bit of a stalemate position. Islam is throwing some light ground and pound, nothing super significant. They're pretty much stalemating here. Olivera, recognizing this, switches to feet on hips. Makhachev responds by trying to pass the guard. Once again, though, finds himself in a tough spot. Olivera throws his right leg over Islam's shoulder, kind of getting another triangle position, but he decides to bail on it and he lets Islam come into his half guard. Immediately, Islam tries to get chest to chest while on top. That is the most dominant position you can be in from half guard. Olivera does not want to let this happen, so he takes his right leg, puts a butterfly hook in right there. Now, what Olivera is trying to go for in this position by getting that butterfly hook in is shown right here. Craig Jones already has the butterfly hook in. He uses it to give himself space to grab an underhook on Chael's leg. He gets on his shoulder in order to isolate the leg. Once he spreads the leg out like that, it is easy just to go underneath and lock up the heel hook. But Islam Makhachev is now chest to chest, so Olivera knows he needs to transition to something else. He takes the butterfly hook out, then transitions to deep half, which you could either sweep or attack a leg lock from there, which Charles does. As he begins to shoot for a leg, Islam stands up and essentially runs away. Without a doubt, the best leg lockers in the world by far is jiu-jitsu, guys. Islam understands that, and he's not going to play the game with Olivera. Once again, playing the fight very, very safe and respecting Olivera's skills. One of the best aspects of Olivera's game is his knees in the clinch. You can see it right here, how much more force is in Olivera's knee versus Makhachev's. The issue is, though, the best time to set up a hip toss is directly after a knee when your opponent is off balance. This, to put it plainly, completely counters Olivera's clinch game. Knee. Then the second Olivera knees and puts his leg back down, Islam steps over for the throw. They end up in the same position as earlier. Islam is actually going for an arm triangle here. Olivera is putting a lot of pressure on that arm to keep it down and not let Islam walk it up to his face. Eventually, though, Olivera hips up to get his guard back to defend the submission attempt. This time, though, Islam walks Charles over to the fence and presses his head into the octagon fence. This completely neuters Charles' ability to move his hips and throw anything up. The interesting thing is, though, Charles knows this. He has absolutely no offense the entire time he's on the ground during the end here. But he doesn't try getting back up. He's happy to concede the position. While having Charles pressed against the fence, he does a much better job landing ground and pound and solidifies that this is his round right here. Nothing happens offensively until about 15 seconds left when Olivera opens his guard. Islam stands up. Olivera is able to turn his body, getting his head away from the fence, allowing himself to land a big up kick. Islam tries to pressure really hard into Olivera's guard, kind of causing a scramble. Olivera, though, shuts down the pass and is able to prevent any ground and pound, keeping his legs in front of Islam. And that was round one. If you hadn't noticed, Islam did not shoot any single or double legs. This is because one of Olivera's best attacks is a guillotine. Islam and his team knew that, so they were only going for body locks, trips, and throws. For the 40th time, playing this fight as safe as you possibly can. This was the third time Islam tried backing up and then catching Olivera with a straight shot as he was coming in. This time, though, he missed the shot, and it put him in a very, very bad spot. He knew this. He closed his eyes, and you can see how he braced as Olivera came with the right hand. Olivera was not able to capitalize, though. Islam was moving back as he was bracing, and Olivera's punch just grazed him. Here is another example of Islam using the green-red-green zone. Islam lunges in with a shot, then immediately clinches up, getting where it's safe, avoiding Olivera's power. Throws some knees. Olivera answers with his own knees. But what's really notable here is Olivera can't get comfortable. He cannot get his game going because Islam is choosing where this fight is taking place. It's tough to tell because of the camera angle how cleanly Olivera landed that elbow over the top. You can definitely see Islam react to it, but there's no mention from the commentators or anything, so we really don't know. They end up in a 50-50 clinch position because of the fact that Makhachev was pushing into Olivera. Olivera connected his hands and attempted a lateral drop. The issue, though, you need to turn and drop at the same time. Olivera really just turned. It was enough to get Makhachev off balance, but just to his knees where he was able to pop right back up. Though, from the clinch right there, he did land a very good short elbow. Islam went for a bit of a trip. It's tough to tell exactly what he did because of the camera angle, but Olivera stayed on his feet and landed another knee directly after. Olivera then tried to get a frame under Islam's neck. Islam used that to grab double underhooks and then a body lock. The first time Makhachev hit the hip throw on Olivera, like I said before, was because he had just thrown a knee and timed it perfectly where he wouldn't be on balance. This time, though, Olivera's base was strong, so he couldn't finish it. They both trade knees there. Now, what's interesting is, even though Olivera was pushed up against the fence and couldn't get quite as much body weight into it as Islam, his knee caused much more of a reaction. His knee attacks really are elite. That right there was his 5th attempt at that combination. It worked this time. Again, back up. Straight right, hook, out of range. Again and again and again. You can tell his team really studied Olivera's style. Right there, Olivera is trying to pressure. He's trying to finally get his game going. But Islam's head movement, it's very, very weird, but it works. He's never keeping his head still. He's ducking and weaving, and he's getting his arms just in front of Olivera, kind of tying him up, making it very, very messy. This is where Charles got very hesitant. He's backing up. He never, ever does that. He's always the one pressuring. But in this instance, he, like I keep saying, cannot get his game going. His striking's not working. Now, if I was him, I'd pull half guard right out in the open, and I would try to be attacking the legs. That's where he has shown the most success. Again, more awkward head movement from Makhachev. What I find so interesting is if you took him to a pure boxing coach, he would train all that out of him. But it's working there. He keeps ducking, weaving his head straight down, and he's still winging shots. On paper, this is all ill-advised, but it's tough to say that. It's working very well. The flying knee right there, not super smart. Left himself open, got caught directly on the chin. As he went down, Makhachev pressured into his guard hard. Olivera put his arms up to defend the ground and pound. Islam slid his head directly underneath the elbow, locked up the arm triangle, and that's all she wrote. If Islam and Charles were going into an immediate rematch, and this is all we had to base it on, Islam was just able to use his skills a little too well at blocking Olivera's game. However, after that Beneil Dariush fight, it is clear Charles has made some serious improvements. His high kick is sneaky and it is powerful. He got very deep on that leg lock attempt. Very, very deep. Beneil Dariush, though, very, very high level in pure jiu-jitsu competition, so his heel hook defense is top tier. Makhachev, I'm sure he's aware of leg lock defense, but he's not to the level of Beneil or Charles. At the same time, though, you can make the argument that Beneil might have been a little too comfortable in the striking department because of what happened against Makhachev. He was standing right in front of Charles. He wasn't moving away the same way that Islam was. Dariush's strikes, they didn't stun Charles the same way Islam's did. I mean, let's just call a spade here. Islam's jacked. He is jacked, he's powerful, and he is strong. The fact of the matter is, Charles just needs to find a way to land shots and get his offense going. He's not going to be able to march Islam down, or Islam's going to keep doing the exact same counter he was doing over and over and over again. back up, straight right, back up, straight right, back up, straight right hook. It's going to be all day. What we know for a fact is Charles has been working and he has been improving. That right hand high kick behind it is a great start. I wish we saw more in the Beneil Dariush fight, but it's probably good for Charles that we didn't, because Islam's not going to know what's coming next. No matter what, it's going to be a much more competitive fight than the first one. I can guarantee you that.